Welcome to Tech Talk Nation, talking about the latest tech, industry news, and hot topics. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Visit our website at techtalknation.com.
Good evening and welcome to Tech Talk Nation. I'm your host, Matt Fitzgerald, and we are super happy to have you here tonight because we have a great show for you. There has been a lot that's gone on in the tech world recently, and there is a lot to talk about, including some wonderful stuff coming from Samsung, some not so wonderful stuff as well, coming from Samsung and Apple, and Tesla making a major announcement this week that kind of put everybody back a little bit. We'll get to that and more later in this episode of Tech Talk Nation. So, without further ado, I am joined once again by the wonderful co-hosts of Ryan Eastman and Matt Grislow, which decided to switch frames while I was doing the intro here. So,
You pulled a fast one on you.
you pulled a fast one on me.
Look at me. I am Matt now.
I mean, at this point, I don't know if I even want to change the names. So, but I will. Here, let me move
if
that
I say
around.
really bad things on this podcast, does he get canceled or do I?
Ah, shoot.
There we go. That's better.
I'm pretty sure I can win this battle.
Well,
I
anyway.
can try to say the more cancelable thing.
Uh-oh. Well, anyway.
You were the first one to cause us to bleep something out, so.
It's a few F-bombs.
Yeah.
I
Alrighty.
don't know what it was, but it was a while ago.
It was an F-bomb. I'm pretty sure I used it now.
Nice. Well, anyway, how are you guys doing today? It has been a while since we had our last show here, and Ryan, you are at once again a new location. Hopefully, this one will be solid for now. So, yeah.
I gotta keep it. I gotta mix it up a little bit. Keep everyone on their toes.
There you go. There you go. And
So,
Grislow, you're just doing you. So there you go.
same old, man.
Same old,
Trying
same
to
old.
Stay alive, work to live to
work.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, anyway,
live to make money, I guess.
There you go. There you go.
Be happy.
Before we get into all of the articles and everything, you said you wanted to plug our social media once again, so I'll let you do that.
Yup. Again, thanks everyone for tuning in to Tech Talk Nation tonight. I'd like to ask you kindly again to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. On Facebook, we are at Tech Talk Nation Show. On Instagram, we are at Tech Talk Nation. And on Twitter, we are at Tech Talk Nations. That's Tech Talk Nation with an S. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, anywhere you get your podcasts. Don't forget, we do stream this live. We post it on all these other places, so you can catch us after the live show. That being said, please like, share, and subscribe on those platforms. We greatly appreciate it. We want to grow our numbers. We want to grow our presence. We want to take Tech Talk Nation to the moon like all these meme coins. So please follow us there. We're trying to come up with some good content on those other channels. Thinking about splitting up the podcast, doing some clips in a sort of a clips format on YouTube, as well as doing some other quickie news on social media on our stories or our feeds. So check us out there. And without further ado, let's get the show on the road.
Alrighty, so we're going to hit the ground running today. We have a lot of updates, actually, from the last couple of weeks of Tech Talk Nation here. So, without going into too much detail here, my mic is acting a little weird today. I'm like peeking out the sound down there. But anyway, we have a lot of articles for you. The first one, Boeing grounding Starliner indefinitely now, according to the Ars Technica here. Basically, they're like, well, there's a bunch of valves that weren't working, and then they discovered some other problems, and they're just like, let's just avoid the situation in entirety and just kind of like prevent everything from happening here. So they're just gonna ground it, and that stinks, but better to have it grounded than waste $1 bajillion. So yay, I guess. Next article. Thousands of Google workers agree to pay cuts so they could work remotely. I remember us talking about in the last article how we would see this pan out, kind of with them releasing this tool basically to say how much less you'd make if you moved and stayed work from home. It says right here, Google has approved 85% of the requests that they've received to like staying work from home. And long story short, they're just saying like you either get demoted or a pay cut if you choose to be work from home. But that doesn't really matter because Facebook is just returning their or they're delaying their return to office until 2022. So yeah, that's interesting, I guess. Um, cool. And where is it? This one, Apple with their child image scanning software. Apple is only seeking Apple to only seek abuse. I've I'm going to go out on a limb here and basically just say that I thought I read this article, but that title kind of misled me a little bit. Basically, it was just saying like, "Hey, we're getting a bunch of criticism, and we're not sure what's going to happen." Pretty much, like they're getting flack from a bunch of different countries, and
Oh, what a surprise!
oh wow, who would have thought? Um, and then the last update that we're kind of going to lead into our discussion with today is Walmart announcing Go Local, a last mile delivery service for other retailers, basically using the Amazon model of like your last mile delivery and expanding that and allowing other retailers to basically hop on that bandwagon with little upfront cost. So it's really interesting to see. And we mentioned that Walmart's trying to become a tech company in our last couple shows. And this is once again going to say that they are getting into tech where they have these distributed deliveries and the gig type economy. So it's going to be interesting to see. And I'd love to hear your guys' takes on this one. This is interesting.
Ryan.
I think it's them adapting uh, probably better than a lot of other brick and mortar traditional places are to. I mean, definitely what's changing habits, right? Because for the most part, I think me and most people would rather just go online to be able to find stuff. So, usually you go to Amazon, there's a million cheap whatever that they're just reselling. And I think this is probably a decent way of competing with that in it's still more localized, which kind of makes sense because I mean, Walmart doesn't sell cheap is the wrong word to phrase, but like knockoff stuff for the most part. It all
Hmm.
mostly like legitimately set up things. So kind of
Right.
opening that up to local people makes more sense to me. And that basically they're just acting as a delivery service, but they still get commission, I imagine, on everything.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a smart move. Um, I think especially as Amazon's kind of, and this is not a new development. Amazon is the king of delivery of just getting goods and giving out goods at a price. You have to pay for them. That's not free. And yeah, I think Ryan, you make a very good point. With changing habits and with people, now more than ever, doing more online than they did before. I think it just makes sense to wrap that sort of service into their company model. I think that just kind of naturally makes sense. It's a natural progression of things, and for local partners in the communities, I think is actually a really neat thing to do.
Definitely. And we'll obviously have to see how that pans out. And it's going to be really interesting to see if they can actually leverage this for other retailers. Cool. Well, the next story we have for you today is about Razer. And this is really interesting. Razer is going to let you sign up to beta test its RGB face mask. And here's the face mask. If it's called the Zephyr, if you want to see that, I guess. Uh, there it is on a person. Okay. I don't know how to feel about this. This is it's I mean, I appreciate like I appreciate the fact of like, hey, if they're making masks are going to be around or whatever, they're making it at least a little more like
I hate
PC
this.
Master AC, I guess. Like, I don't
It's
know.
it's very steampunk. It's
Yes.
very steampunk. I think I don't know when this was announced. I don't know if this was sometime last year, if this was at CES this year, but for sure when I saw it, I thought it was Project Hazel at the time. I thought for sure at the time this is not going to last. This is just a kind of a sort of knee jerk project, kind of silly thing that they're going to do. It's a one off. It's not going to mean much. Well, now what we're seeing with the Delta variant and the reemergence of mask mandates across the states in different parts of the country, I really I don't know if this is a bad idea for the company just because we don't know how long we'll be in masks. But for the foreseeable future, we will be, and or at least they'll be around, and for people to hop on this if they need to or want to have some sort of cool style. Have that steampunk gamer vibe when they go out to the grocery store. More power to them.
Right.
I hate this on so many levels.
Alrighty.
To me it looks gaudy, expensive, and just like it looks stupid for the most part. Like
Yes, yes,
the
and
only
yes.
the situation in which I imagine someone wearing this is a rave or to like Lollapalooza or some other like big thing like that. And at that
Ooh,
point,
yeah.
what's the point of wearing a mask there? I mean, you're already around
Right.
countless hordes of people.
Yeah, like an EDM
So like,
concert or something, or even like
yeah,
something a
that's
DJ
like
could wear. That'd be kind of
yeah,
cool.
exactly. And that's what it looks like to me. And for that, like if that's where you're going, that's a cool aesthetic to have. But why does it have to be a mask then? Because if you're already there, like it's kind of clear, like, yeah, I don't care.
Right.
I'm fine with the risk. Like it's just kind of dumb. It reminds me at the beginning of this whole mess, there was they had like these big pods people put around their heads that were like
Oh
five hundred
yeah.
dollars a piece.
Like the
Yes.
spaceman
Yeah,
helmets.
yeah, I
Yep.
hated those two for a lot of the same reasons. Overpriced, gaudy, and just uh
Right.
uh.
And I don't know. Well, we'll have to see. I mean, this is just in beta right now, so we don't know like when or if they are even going to sell this. So who knows? Who knows? Alrighty, the next article we have for you. This is going to be a pretty hot button issue right here. We are talking about the wonderful giant that is Facebook and their clash with recent researchers. So basically, long story short, Algorithm Watch forced to shut down Instagram monitoring project after threats from Facebook. Long story short, they created a plugin that users can load up into Instagram so they could study basically how the algorithm works and how you're getting served the content that you get served. Um, and Facebook got angry with them, basically threatened to take legal action against them if they didn't stop the research. So they stopped it. That was fine. And then they went and banned the researchers' Instagram accounts. So I don't know. This is a very big issue about privacy, walled gardens, and all of the power that these tech companies have over our lives, and them preventing you from trying to see, go under the hood and see what's actually happening.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big thing about transparency, right? I mean, I can't think how many times in the last 2 years the big tech CEOs have been put in front of Congress and asked all kinds of questions about their, potential censorship or methods of, delivering content to their users, and they just either gave very politically crafted answers that danced around the true answer, or they just said they didn't have the answer and they'd get back to them. I really, it disappoints me that these big companies I mean, I guess it doesn't surprise me that these big companies do not want to be transparent, but it disappoints me just because we're just kind of trending toward this. And this is something we've mentioned in the past few episodes. We're trending toward this sort of like digital public square where ideas are expressed and people are able to discuss or talk or whatever. The idea that you can't even understand how that works. And if you do, you'll be censored, banned, and deplatformed is scary. Especially this small company being threatened by the tech giant that is Facebook, right? It's scary. It's not the first time this has happened, that I don't believe. And it really just kind of, it's disappointing.
Right.
It's a tricky thing. Normally you'd expect, like a market to take care of these things, but it's kind of crazy. They all kind of act like a cartel or a syndicate. And that, like, when competition starts to pop up, other like companies out from Silicon Valley will start like banning them and refusing to allow services to them and a bunch of other things. It's a whole messy thing. I would love to put forward a wild theory on why Facebook would ban them. Because
Let's hear it.
I think, their research would probably give you a good idea how much Facebook knows about you. And I think if people knew, it would creep them out and freak them out.
Well,
Because
to put it into perspective here, basically all the data was anonymous that they were getting. They were trying to find
yeah.
trends, like whether they supported a certain type of politician, or
Oh,
they enforced like certain body types, or like stereotypes or things like that. So
interesting.
yeah.
That would still make them very, very that would probably still scare Facebook, because that will probably get them dragged in front of the legal body again
Well, here's
if
the
that
thing.
research goes through.
Yeah, this
If I can quickly interject, Fitz, I do have to bring up an interesting point. Don't forget, Facebook was originally, I mean, quite literally a Facebook where they were rating people based on looks, and that was the algorithm.
Yeah, that's TikTok now.
well,
That's not quite what
That's
TikTok is.
No, I mean literally one of the algorithms that TikTok uses to promote content is how attractive they think you are. And that's
Oh,
not a
well, yeah.
joke.
They dig into your deepest, darkest
No,
web
it's machine
histories,
learning. It's
and
terrifying.
yeah, they know more about you than you know about you.
No, I mean
But
they
yeah,
literally take an image of you and they're like, "Hey, how attractive is this person computed?" And you're just like, "I think this," and they're like, "All right, we're gonna promote this person." It's TikTok's a nightmare hellscape. Just if anyone's curious, but
yeah.
and
But
especially when it
to
comes
that
to
point, Fitz, I mean,
algorithms.
that's how
and
Facebook started.
privacy.
So it's interesting that this is what they were also researching.
Yeah.
Well, to put this into perspective a little bit too, and this is a very biased article by the people who got shut down, so they're obviously a little biased on the situation. But in the article here, let me see real quick. They say you can't rely on Facebook because the company can't be trusted. They failed to act on their own commitments, and basically, I forget where they say. Uh, they basically were weaponizing their terms of service, and
Oh yeah.
there was a paragraph here. I forget exactly where it was. Um, Basically saying like what they found, saying that
Is it that middle one speaking out? Facebook claimed,
uh no,
or no?
it's under here, basically saying that um without independent, there was something
I
saying
think
like
you're maybe thinking them at the top,
I'm
because they
trying.
do talk about like a
Under
terms of
urgent
service.
need, there was something about Palestine and stuff, but
Yes, there it is. This Colombian users noticed the content they posted in relation to ongoing protests tended to disappear. Same thing happened in Palestine. Uh, Same thing. There was something else with that they said. Facebook took some product decisions in order to protect alt-right figures. They favor specific political opinions, and there was another one. There was somewhere else in here where it mentioned that certain body types were preferred on Instagram and shared and stuff like that. And it's really interesting that this is brought up because one of my friends runs a very popular meme account on Instagram, and he got what's called shadow banned, and they talk about that a little bit in here too, where basically if you post something and Facebook or Instagram or whoever don't like it, they just aren't going to show it to people. So, remember a few years back, they basically said how they retuned the way that feeds work, where you don't see every single post, you just see ones that are more relevant to you, maybe not even in chronological order. And that's where this term of shadow banning comes up, basically where an account that you may like could post something that couldn't agree with what people are saying, and then they may not show your next 3, 5, 10, 15, however many posts they feel are punishing you for posting that specific thing. And it really caused their metrics to tank and them to lose some followers and stuff like that. Um, but it's one of those things where it's like, how right is the company in this situation? You sign up for this service, you agree to their terms of service, but when does it become a problem when they suppress what people say? There's a hot button
Yeah,
issue.
well, oh man, there's like 20 things I want to address right now. Let's see, what's the least controversial one I can go over?
Telecommunications Act of 1993.
Yeah, we'll go with that one. We'll do that one.
Yeah, provider cannot be held
Yeah, there's the
responsible for
post.
the user.
Yeah, let's go with that one. That is the last thing I wanted to bring up. Yeah, but that's there's what do you call it? There's riders to that. Among those being that moderation is uh one of them. The weasel word that's in there that lets companies like kind of play around with all this is good faith moderation,
Mm,
and like to what degree something would be considered good faith. Because other things, it's like, oh yeah, you're allowed to ban for like nudity, like illegal things, like drugs and stuff like that. Like the categories where you go like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Like I could see why you on a form, but then good faith moderation gets put in there, and that's where the ability to kind of regulate this with the laws that are already present becomes very, very tricky.
right.
You want to
Yeah,
hit a
I agree.
controversial one?
Uh-oh.
Oh, should we go for the controversial one?
Will it get me canceled?
It
Will
might
it
get
get
me
us
canceled.
canceled?
Probably.
Okay, so let's save that for another discussion. Uh,
I'll save this for the post show.
there you go. There you go.
For the private co-host post show.
I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll open that up to a Discord
Subscribe
once
to
we
our
get it.
Patreon to see the post show.
We
Well,
don't.
no, actually, that could be fun to do with the Discord, which I don't think we've mentioned at all.
Nope, not yet. We'll get to that later in the show. But before that, basically, I just want to go over a couple articles relatively quickly here. The first one, basically about smart home standardization. And we've been mentioning this how like smart home devices are just so terribly bad for security that it's important to get these standardized. And now there's been a delay in all of the standardization, all that stuff, and basically delaying it until the first half of next year to basically get all these standards up. It's a similar situation where you wouldn't want to drive a car without seatbelts, so why wouldn't you want a smart home device without some semblance of security? So,
Well, I
just a
mean,
thought.
one of the main drivers of this is just the fact that there are so many different standards of home automation or home interactivity systems. I mean, Google has its own platform, Samsung has its own platform, Apple has its own platform, Amazon has its own platform. The purpose of this is to integrate all those into one, so that you don't have to look at the label and go, okay, is this a HomeKit, compatible device? Is this an Alexa compatible device? Is this a Google, Home compatible device? The goal is to have them all kind of sunk up so that it's almost kind of like the Qi standard, right? You don't need a Apple specific wireless charger for the Apple phone, the same thing for the
For
Samsung
now.
phone, same thing for the Google phones. Yeah, security is a good factor of that, but the idea that you don't have to worry about the specific device you have, I think is the single most important thing. Not just
Right.
because of consumers' confusion, but also just, I mean, making it easy for just people who know that, and they just want to get, whatever product. Because right now, I mean, there are certain products that only work with, Apple, only work with Google. If we had products that worked across the board, you wouldn't have to shop at a specific company or with a specific company for a product you'd like, as long as they have this Matter standard.
Right.
This to be seen next year, which I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, that's the main driver. Again, unfortunate, but
Yeah.
I'd rather it work well and be robust than, suck.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure. I mean, a lot of the security issues come from I think the end product devices rather than say Google or Amazon or Apple, right? Because I mean, I know I'd guess something like 70% of all IoT things are hooked up to a little microcontroller called an ESP.
Yep.
And there's a handful of known security issues with them.
And then take into account whatever's receiving the signals from that, and how they're
Yeah.
sending the signal, how they're receiving the signal, all of that
Yeah.
stuff. So
Oh, yeah. There's always the classics. There's buffer overflows and all that kind of security, like mumbo jumbo that most people will never interact with. But the point is, there's a couple like well known, like, hey, this is documented. We know this is an issue with ESPs, and they're great little devices. It's just maybe not the most secure thing ever.
right.
So when they're facing the internet, you'd kind of rather have all this stuff like standardized out so that they can basically not run into other security issues like the buffer attacks and all those kind of different attacks.
Right.
Sure.
Definitely.
I mean, I know just my light bulbs, all of my light bulbs are ESPs.
Yep. I've got a bunch too. So
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah, I'm working on
Alrighty.
resetting up my system in my place too.
Very nice.
Slow,
Very
but it's
nice.
getting there.
Alrighty, well, the next article we have for you, this is really interesting. This is super interesting in my opinion. NVIDIA revealed that its CEO was computer generated in its keynote speech. Long story short, NVIDIA had a keynote speech where their CEO Jensen Huang was CG. And here's the scary part: we don't know what part it was. So that, like, researchers are trying to figure this out and trying to figure out, like, where is the CG? And the biggest hypothesis on where that could be is right during this segment here. So I'll play like a minute of this and kind of show you where people think that it's CG.
Today we're introducing a new kind of computer, the basic building block of the modern data center. Here it is. What I'm about to show you brings together the latest GPU accelerated computing.
So they're thinking this entire area here is him completely computer generated. I think it's
So they
fascinating.
said,
I think that's probably it. Kind of looks like.
yeah. Well, they said in that article, I think it's 14 seconds that they've come out and said of the hour and a half. And there's videos you can check out about the behind the scenes, how they use DSLR cameras to map the CEO of NVIDIA and do all kinds of scans of his house, and how they used AI to sync his digital avatar with his actual physical movements and make him look more human. To me, that is amazing, though, that you could you can just go from a person to, it's full CGI. I'm struggling to get out words just because
It's cool. I think it's super cool. It's scary, but it's
wild.
cool.
It's wild. Yeah, it's wild. I mean, this is kind of a pie in the sky kind of comment, but This sort of opens the door, I suppose, for future companies that don't want to have their CEO speak at these keynotes for whatever reason and create sort of like a face of the brand, and it is a fully digital person that they could masquerade as the CEO or whatever, and then just keep it kind of secret. Again, a very
Right.
pie in the sky sort of idea here, but the technology is here, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's yeah. I just look at that and I go, "Oh no, we're what 10 years from never being able to believe any video we ever see again." Like,
I mean, this takes deep
it's
fakes to a whole new level,
yeah, it's a
and this
creepy
isn't even
thought.
deep fakes.
I mean, granted, I know for a fact that there's tons of people already working on, hey, we need to figure out how to create AI to figure out when something was created by an AI, which is a whole other like branch of whatever, but and the necessary one. But it's
Wait a
just
second.
I don't like the fact that I mean we're probably honestly a decade out. It's probably strong, probably half a decade out from just not being able to believe a single video we ever see again.
I actually thought of one application of software, or this use of this software. What was it, last year, early this year, within the last year? The leader of South Korea, North Korea, Kim Jong Un, hadn't
Uh-oh.
been seen in a while. He
Oh
hadn't been seen
no.
in a
I
while. He
forgot
was out of the
about that.
public eye, and I can see this technology being used as sort of a facade for a world leader giving public speeches and addresses if they're not feeling well, or they're too busy, or they have
Or
something
they're
else
dead
going on
and
where they
someone
can't
needs to
physically be
puppet
present.
them.
I mean, no, seriously.
Like
And
honestly.
I
I
know
mean,
you're
to
serious.
another extent,
It's
I
just
mean, to another
crazy.
extent, and I will cap it here. But I mean, the United States has the oldest sitting president ever, and he does seem like he shows signs at times, with mental lapses. It wouldn't surprise me, not just our government, but I mean, seriously, world governments, and companies to start doing this
Hmm.
without saying anything to the public, and making it seem like this is all a very ordinary thing, especially if there's no reporters in the room. If it's like a public address or something, if a president has to come out and give a big statement, I can see this technology being used in that case for sure, especially if that president or that world leader is down for the count for whatever reason, and they don't want to seem weak, or whatever, because their leader can't be on TV.
I mean,
Crazy.
governments have already been doing this for years. We all know birds aren't real.
They haven't been real since the 90s.
Oh, there
The
you go.
90s. This started back in '61. I got a story for you, buddy.
Well, speaking of
Oh,
something,
I thought the theory was it started back in the 90s.
Oh, yeah, that oh, dude, it's a hole to go down sometime. It's hilarious.
wonderful.
I mean, at that point, we're admitting the moon landing wasn't real. I mean,
Disclaimer: I do believe in birds.
Alrighty.
they do
Just-
work for the
Just to make sure everyone knows I'm kidding.
Well, time for our obligatory NFT article. Once again, we're not financial advisors, but this 12-year-old needs one because he's set to get over $400,000 this year from selling NFTs. Benjamin Ahmed is 12 years old, and he has made 3,350 pixelated whales, and they are selling $300 to basically like do, and now he's making bank on it. And there was one quote here. Where is it? He's made over $350,000 to date, and by the end of August, supposedly it's going to be $400,000 by the end of the month. But here's the thing that I thought I wanted to point out, because I know Ryan has something to say on this. Where is it? He goes down here.
Oh no,
He says, I plan to keep all my Ether and not convert it to fiat money.
my man.
There you go. I wanted to point that
No,
out
this
because
12-year-old, this 12-year-old smart. Hold on.
I don't know what. I wasn't making that much money at 12 years old. I probably wasn't making any money. If anything, I
Dude.
may have been like a park district umpire for a summer. Wait a minute. I don't even know if I was old enough to work. Point aside, this kid is clearly capitalizing on what's out there. They've I forgot what they're called. I think they're called like crypto punks or something. It was a similar NFT project that Visa actually just bought into as I suppose an investment. And so yeah, I mean, if you can hop on this trend and make money, I'm all for it. And not just him making money on the upfront sales, the initial sales. He's making 2.5 times commission on secondary sales too.
Wow,
Dude,
I didn't see that. Oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
the kid's
And
great.
not to mention, Ethereum's only going up and up in price, right? I mean, it's essentially like a stock that is also
Oh
considered
yeah,
money.
no.
It's hats off to this kid. He's been coding
Yeah,
since I think he was
definitely.
5.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, this is awesome.
dad was a
Yeah,
Yeah,
web
four hundred
dev.
thousand dollars. That's a good chunk of change.
Man, I didn't realize fiat was BS until late high school. This kid's ahead of the curve. I
Uh,
obvious I've kind of come down on the side that a lot of NFTs are like Beanie Babies. That might be a little dated of a reference for the youngins, but
I could
Beanie
see it.
Babies back in the day had that big boom where everyone was like, "Oh, they're gonna be worth so much money in 20 years." Surprise, they're not. I think a lot of NFTs are gonna turn out that way. I think if it's not linked to say like a game or linked to like a hard asset or something like that, it's probably not gonna hold up well. Except, I don't know, maybe it has some value in Ether, which will hold up. I don't know.
Who knows?
On the whole, I kind of see them like Beanie Babies. You gotta hand it to the kid though. Like, man, I like this kid so much already. He's like, I got
He- this- this-
450,000 in Ether, man, fiats and BS. I'm staying away from that. Let's go.
Although he will need a financial advisor, which I mean, I guess we cannot be for him.
Imagine needing a financial advisor at 12, dude. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I mean, you make a good point though,
This kid's
and
the
this is
goat.
something that we've said several times. The NFTs they're worth, especially when they're fully digital, as much as people are willing to pay. It's
Yeah.
like any collectible. I'm sure it'll go up and down over time. You'll have lulls, you have high points. It's just whatever the market dictates and whatever people consider to be valuable
Yeah.
at the time.
Yep.
Yeah,
That
well,
being
I mean,
said, though, that being said, I think if nothing else, this shows that young kids understand the importance of NFTs and potentially prioritize the digitalization or the digital NFTs over traditional hard physical collectibles and memorabilia. This could indicate a sort of culture shift.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's plenty of like collectible stuff like that that does kind of maintain value. I just feel like this one there might be a little bit of a gold rush on it. That's not going to pan out in the long term.
Right.
Regardless of that, man, respect to Ahmed. Like,
Yeah, good for
a
him.
boy out here.
So
Our guy's
Good-
hustling.
good.
I do not
making
know
money
any
moves.
12. I don't know any 12-year-olds out there who are like that. Just like, I don't even know. Clever is what I'll go with.
yeah, honestly, like kids
Oh,
paid for his
man. I think
college.
about what I was doing at 12, dude. Like, dang.
Right.
Yeah, it
Well,
does pay off college.
Like
Wow.
honestly. Where is it? So our next story here is we're going to go through Samsung's trial of events here. Google is bringing Samsung 5G modem tech to the U.S. with their new Pixel phone, according to some sources. Really cool to
Which
see.
one?
Hopefully, in a Pixel, a nice 5G phone. But
Do they mean the 6 or the one they literally released this week? The 5A, I think. it
5A? No, the new ones.
yeah, it's
Oh, the
still
6s.
New
the
6.
new 6.
6 Pro.
Okay.
But things aren't all great for Samsung because one of their phones exploded on Alaska Airlines flight, which is no bueno. Uh,
What
yeah,
year is it?
it is 2021 last time I checked.
Are
But
you sure? This feels like 20, I want to say 15.
16
It was 2016 was that.
feels like
That
ages
was the
ago.
takes me
Note.
back.
Was that the Note 7?
Yep,
Yep.
yep,
This is the Galaxy A21.
Young
correct.
again.
Yeah, so got caught on fire, which is a shame. So not too great for Samsung. And then here's two issues that I want to talk about a little bit more in detail. Samsung can remotely disable any of its TVs worldwide, and if you decide to mod their phone, you're not going to use your camera. So we're going to talk about both of these at once because they're very related and very interesting. Basically, in this article here about the TVs, with all the recent looting in South Africa, Samsung basically wrote down the all the retailers wrote down the serial numbers of the TVs that were stolen, gave those to Samsung, and then as soon as the TV gets connected to the internet, checks in, and boots up into whatever, it goes to a Samsung server, and they just basically say no, like in a way almost self-destruct the TV. And then with the phones, long story short, what they do with that is if you unlock the bootloader within some of these new Samsung phones, basically they just say the camera stopped working, and they are just like, I don't know, like, oh darn, what a shame. And people are just like, this is Samsung's doing. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this one because these are two pretty interesting issues.
I'll take it first. I do want to make one comment on the the 5G chips before going into bricking its own devices. Um, I think I think this really shows what the adoption of non-Qualcomm 5G modems. This shows that Qualcomm has some serious competition, and they're really going to have to think about their strategy moving forward. Um, Not that the only phones that they had put hardware into before were, iPhones, Samsung phones, and Google phones. To that end, I think this is really showing Qualcomm that the world and industry no longer needs to rely on them, and they need to figure out how to set aside their chips to make them different and to make them better than the competition, so that maybe potentially they'll end up going back to Qualcomm. So on the note of these other news articles, I just think it's kind of funny. It's definitely one way to disable 5 cameras on a phone to discourage consumers from sideloading other OSs onto the phones. I think the reason why they did that was to discourage it for the purpose, or one of the main purposes, being security for payment systems or payment apps. Although it's you take a risk, you take a calculated risk when you uh, bootload other OSs onto a device, just like you would trying to jailbreak an iPhone, which I'd done in the past, and to varying degrees worked and didn't work. To the point of the Samsung TV, I think it's not a bad idea to be able to brick a stolen TV. However, the idea that they are easily able to do this, and they've apparently been able to do this for a while, is a little concerning, just on the basis of, if for whatever reason or in whatever situation a hacker were to be granted access to this remote shutdown button, they could brick any Samsung TV, no matter what. Now it has to be connected to the internet, but given the amount of smart connectivity that these TVs have, they're more than likely connected to the internet. So it's a double-edged sword.
Definitely.
Yeah. Man, I was gonna take like the opposite tone on both those stories than you two. That's the funny part. I sympathize with the TV thing, trying to brick them as they're getting stolen, but I mean, you're definitely like completely right about. Oh yeah, what if a hacker figured this out? And then, I mean, a lot of hackers are just curious people who kind of like causing chaos sometimes. Like there's a ton of those kind of hackers out there who, yeah, they'll brick your TV just as like, I don't know, it makes them chuckle.
Huh. That's like some
It's
like,
weird.
huh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
There's a yeah, there's like a it's weird how many of like hackers are kind of that attitude of like, oh, I'll do this just because it'll be interesting and maybe I'll chuckle at it. The
Right.
one I find more egregious is actually the bootloading thing. That one angers me a bit. It's like, okay, I paid you the money. Do I or do I not own this piece of hardware and therefore have the right to use it as I see fit?
I
It kind
completely
of
agree.
comes, yeah, it comes down to me like, this was a lot of right to repair things, is kind of bleeding over into this a little bit, but it's like, do I own this or do I not? Like, you, why do you get to brick my cameras that I paid for just because you don't like the software I'm trying to put on it? Like, why do you get to do that?
Right. And
And like, if you're,
I was just going to say in
I
the
was just,
article, they say if you reflash the Samsung firmware, everything's fine. So,
yeah, that's the,
yeah,
ooh, yeah, it's pretty annoying. I could sympathize with like, oh yeah, we're gonna nuke the memory if you try and bootload, which would make perfect sense to me. Like, yeah, nuke all the storage so that no one can like get at people's cards and all that. But not letting you use the camera to me seems just like petty and just like, come on, do I not own this? This is mine.
right.
And the last little thing is the Qualcomm stuff. That's yeah, it's the Qualcomm looks not in the best straits at the moment. They've always been kind of a generalized ARM processor anyway, like not a specific use one. So we'll see what they change. Maybe they're going to start packaging their own like neural engines and all that stuff on their chips as well. So that would bring a lot of those really good image processing stuff to a ton of other like phones and tablets and all that. Or maybe they'll just kind of pivot a different direction, kind of like Intel has with a lot of other people, because Intel makes a lot of secondary pieces that aren't just the important processor that you think of.
Right.
Right.
Definitely. And we'll have to see how this pans out too, because it's definitely going to be interesting to see how Qualcomm can differentiate themselves from these other giants that seem to be taking away market share from them. Well, the next article we have is a little bit over sensationalized, but basically, it's the Joker virus has returned to Android. It can empty your bank accounts without you knowing it, and it's hidden these apps in the Play Store. This is a little bit of fear mongering by Entrepreneur here, in my opinion. But long story short, all it does is just basically tries to hack into the SIM card within the phone, send a bajillion texts, and basically have the phone company pay you money or have them like rack up your phone bill basically, which is crappy. And basically, from what I understand, they're basically just like trying to integrate, break the integration between like a telephone company and a payment processor to kind of abuse the system in a little bit there. So
I think it goes a little deeper than that, though. They essentially sign you up for subscription services without you knowing, using amounts up to $7 a week. So they seem pretty discreet on a bill.
mhm.
But over time, that racks up quite a bit of money. And to your point, yes, it's also discreet because they can use phone verification for a lot of these services that they sign you up for, that that just require you to verify that you are the person that owns this device. Does not really require user interaction, so they're able to do it discreetly. Um, I think it's more of that than trying to charge the phone service. To that end, it's pretty scary stuff.
It's
But also, on the other hand, if you do read the article, you can look at the names of these apps that they have that contain the virus, and it's like Blue Scanner or like PDF Editor, the best on
yeah,
the market. Like
yeah,
it's
it's shady
oh,
apps like
Yeah, like
Some of them aren't
unique,
too
unique
shady.
keyboard emoticons, fancy fonts and free emoticons.
I'll be
I'd be
honest.
careful downloading, non, big apps or whatever. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, you have to stick with the big name brand apps or company apps. But, if it doesn't have a ton of reviews, if it looks a little shady, if it's too good to be true, it probably is,
Right.
and you shouldn't download it.
Right.
I know
I
that
mean,
Apple, has their own way of trying to discourage people from side loading apps, which people do anyway. And to be fair, I've done it also to play Game Boy games on my phone. Um, that being said, again, it's the user takes a calculated risk, and you assume that risk once you do that. But yeah, be safe. Use your internet smarts. Don't go downloading weird obscure apps, even if they fill the need that you need or fill the need that you're looking for. Just do your homework, people. Use your internet
Right.
smarts.
I'll be honest. A lot of the cam scanner apps, though, I would not be surprised if those got a lot of people.
I could see it. They said those apps have over 500,000
Especially,
downloads
yeah,
combined.
that hummingbird one sounds like something I had at one time. That's the scary part.
Huh.
So the
Crazy.
really scary part is they can still do this, even if they can still take money from your accounts and sign you up for all these services. If you have it downloaded, even if the app is taken down from the app store, it has to be completely off your phone. So yeah,
Oh,
to your point, Ryan, if you still have it on your phone or any of your
yeah, it's got to
devices,
go.
yeah, it's gotta go.
Right. Speaking of something that's gonna go, not not necessarily by choice, is Microsoft Teams on a lot of Apple devices because they decided that you now need iOS 14 to run Teams, which is a major software that a lot of companies use. Long story, I forget the number of people who have a phone less than iOS 14, but I
I
do
may have
know
those
it's
numbers.
okay. I know it's a ton. And by Microsoft making this move, they're either forcing a bunch of people to upgrade their phones, depending on the employer or whatever, or they're just not going to be able to use Teams on their phone, which in a way is also kind of a double.
Thank you for listening to Tech.
Whoops. There we go.
Rip.
Rip went to the down instead of up. But anyway, the uh, the difference with that is if it's not on your phone, you don't get bothered by work, which is nice. If it's an employee owned device, you are no longer reachable, which is a problem. So, like, weigh the options.
So it's only going to be available for devices with iOS 14 and above. For anyone who's not an iOS Apple user, the current software is iOS 14. 15 will be out most definitely next month. This would be a problem, I would say, for I would say Android users. If this was targeting a certain Android software specifically, because Android users for whatever reason tend to stick to their software more than iOS users. They don't update their software as much. As of April or May of this year, maybe March, Apple had just over a 90% adoption rate for iOS 14. And as of May 28th, there's an estimated billion people who have iPhones worldwide. That means that 10% of the users, so yeah, 100,000 people, will not be able to have access to that end, though. I would assume and I would hope, and this is a lot of assuming and a lot of hoping, but I would assume and I would hope that people are using company phones or phones that are, being provided by the company or being paid for by the company. And so if this does become a problem for those 100,000 users, and again, this is for the people of those 100,000 users who also use Microsoft Teams, then it will be a problem. But
Right.
that being said, again, it's a high adoption rate of iOS. It's going to be supporting the newest version, and I would assume that most users affected will either be helped by their company, will be helped by their company, because the other users, the other whatever part of that 100,000 that aren't on 14, it won't affect them. A lot of companies don't use Microsoft Teams.
Good point.
Couple things. The reason the Android adoption rate is so low is largely phone manufacturer based. You're lucky if your phone manufacturer is doing a year or two of generational updates, so a lot of older phones just get left behind on older versions of Android.
Right.
Have either of you worked in an industrial setting?
Not in the sense you have.
Great.
Yeah, probably
So,
not in the sense you have.
yeah, companies don't, especially industrial companies, never upgrade their software.
Yep.
Ever. I changed out software for a computer that I think was running, I want to say, I don't remember if it was XP or Vista in 2018. So it wouldn't surprise me if a big chunk of these, if I don't know to what degree Apple does device management and all that for companies and whatnot, if it's pretty extreme, there's a good chance a lot of these companies have not actually updated their phones that much.
So I can actually touch on that a little bit because
Perfect.
we have a couple clients that do that where I work, and basically you get set in a pool. So basically all these people need to get their phones. They're gonna This phase one group is gonna get this phone, and then by the time all of those are rolled out, there's going to be a new generation phone. Phase two is going to get the new generation phone. Same thing repeats. Phase three is going to get that third generation. All of those are enrolled into what's called an MDM system, mobile device management, basically where somebody like me could log in and see all of the software on every phone, all of the basically the software versions, and basically you could kick off software updates from there that basically tell the person like, hey, you are going to upgrade to this tonight, like avoid using it.
Is
And
it generally just kept up to date in general, though?
that's the thing. It depends on the apps that are being used by the client. Like if it is a
And
if you're using some legacy piece of software, as you kind of mentioned there, and
yeah,
their iOS app only supports up to iOS, say 14 or say 13 or 12, um, basically they're not going to upgrade past that value because that business application is so critical to the operation that it is either going to cost them more money to update that application, or they're going to have lost productivity because of the lack of that. So it's a double-edged sword
it
there.
wouldn't surprise me if then a lot of the people who do get left behind are industrial people, because like truly industrial places use some old software, some old hardware and all that, you know.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
a lot of them these days too have iPhones, surprisingly.
Hmm.
At least the ones I've been to.
I mean, I will say this, and I think you kind of hinted at this, Ryan. Um, Apple does do a good job of supporting older devices, and they've done
Oh yeah,
a better
absolutely.
job with that recently.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
I was just trying to look this up right now. What iPhones didn't get iOS 14? I'm running a phone that's almost 4 years old, and it's still running iOS 14, and I'm gonna be able to get the iOS 15 upgrade next month.
Hmm.
The phone will be approximately 4 years old at that point, if not already 4 years old. They do a good job
Oh yeah.
of maintaining their phones. And to that point, though, I will say, typically people don't have phones that are 4 years old because they break down for whatever reason. They get slow, whatever. In my case, I've gotten lucky. My brother just upgraded to an iPhone 12 from 11 or something,
Typically,
which shocked me because,
10 years, not that
sort of,
long.
only because I've had a lot of issues in the past with, 2-year upgrade periods because my phone just gets so slow and battery so bad. I have
Yeah.
upgraded my battery at the beginning of this year, have had no issues with performance still, even after 4 years of this phone being out. So to your point of, having the older devices and, it being problematic, I don't really think a lot of companies are still having people hold 4-year-old phones. And even to that point, it might also be 5-year-old phones that are
That's
still getting
industry.
the upgrade.
That's why
And
I
again,
specifically.
but again though, like my phone is, I think, a special case. This phone, I don't know why, is a special case. It's still going pretty well after 4 years. It's still pretty snappy.
And
I would bet you
Yeah.
that some of these other phones aren't,
Oh yeah.
that
No,
are even newer, and so they've had to upgrade anyway. So I don't necessarily believe it's that big of a problem.
that's what I did qualify that with industrial.
also to
Because
put it,
Even still, but I mean, you were still talking about
I've
Windows applications, and I'll say this: like, I worked at a medical instrument
I'm
company
not talking
in high
about Windows
school.
applications, dude. I'm talking about things that are way worse than that.
Well, you just said Windows XP and Vista, things
Oh
you
yeah,
mentioned.
I was just giving a generic example of like, hey, here's this ridiculously old software that was still in use while I was there.
Sure, but I mean, like, giving another example, right? I worked at a medical instrument company in high school, and the software that the company used was based off of an old version of Windows that we essentially could not upgrade the computers from because there was no new version of the
and
software
that's what
that
I've been
ran
mentioning.
on Windows.
Hmm.
To that end, it's not a problem with specifically iOS devices, and
Yeah.
in turn, because there's seems to be a good amount of turnover. I think people there's studies that are out there. You can look them up. I think typical iPhone users are holding on to their phones. They are holding them on to them a little longer. I think 3 years is typical now, if not 4 being about the max, 4 to 5. But that's, I think, in cases where the phones are still pretty snappy. And I do think this one is a non sequitur because it is one of those few examples. I mean, I mentioned my brother upgraded for a phone that was 2 years old that was apparently experiencing issues. And again, that phone would still be able to run Microsoft Teams. It would still be had access to the software. They support older devices, but it's not necessarily always the problem. And then again, people upgrade their phones often, and companies will offer upgrades as well, no matter if it's industrial or not.
It kind of does. Industrials, like heavy industry, is a little different because of the apps you have to use for heavy industry. Because people don't make good apps to integrate with PLCs generally, stuff like that. Like the real heavy industry stuff, that stuff never gets updated. I do think though that is a very like minority of users, an extreme
True.
minority.
And I don't think those people are going to run into this issue. It doesn't sound like.
Oh, they might.
Well,
You've some I don't know if you know much about programmable logic controllers and all that. The ones that connect to the internet might have an app, but it's generally old, it's not slick, it does not get updated often. And that's just because they don't have a lot of not a lot of computer science people, computer engineers want to go work for an industrial like programmable logic controller manufacturer. It's not where I think most of us want to go.
right.
But
Fair.
I will just fairly say that is a probably vast minority of people.
Well, on the bright
Like
side,
yeah.
on the bright side of things, though, according to a couple articles that we have here, Apple is actually like listening to people and
I don't
supposedly
believe it.
making the updates that people want, like getting rid of the touch bar and a couple of other things, basically with the design and the battery life and stuff like that. And
Start putting fans back in their computers.
who knows? And then
No.
they say they're going to not push out SharePlay as part of their initial iOS 15 release. Uh, but it's just kind of interesting. You mentioned that like, okay, all these people don't necessarily want to work for like these um, like PLC manufacturers. They all want to work for
No, not
Apple,
like
and then they
that's like
delete
heavy
features.
industry.
Yes,
Yeah, that's heavy industry people though. That's a completely different animal than 99.9% of users.
fair.
Yeah, I mean, I'll as someone who was uncharacteristically excited for an iOS update for the first time in 4 years. That being one of the features I was very excited for, the share play. It's a little disappointing. It's also not new. It's sort of becoming I don't know what to call it, a standard, a tradition. Um, it's becoming typical for Apple to announce a feature that is very big that people get excited for, and then they eventually roll it out in like a point one or a point two update after the initial release. And I mean, I suppose it's because maybe two things. One, to make sure the initial software rollout is robust enough. They've already had a ton of issues in the recent past where they roll out a big software update, the point O's, 13, 14, 12, and there are big problems and impacts. For example, like the iPhone 11 had battery issues as soon as they released one of the iOS updates. It was 12 or 13, I believe, and so they had to send out a patch for that. And it can be problematic to release a big 0.0 update. So I understand pushing off features. It is a little disheartening for some of the features I wanted. That is going to be delayed. Also, what will be delayed, I read further, is the feature where you can use a single cursor and move content in flip screens between a Mac and an iPad. And a lot of people were kind of looking forward to that. So that's a little disappointing. But to the point of Apple listening to its customers, I think that's true. And this is sort of echoing some of the points made in the article. But I do think that Steve Jobs did have sort of a grip on the company where it was his way or the highway, and it didn't really matter what the consumer wanted, because eventually what Apple wanted would be what the consumer would want. What we've seen in the past few years with the introduction of the problematic butterfly keys and the keyboards and the Macs to being completely rescinded, to introduction of the OLED or LED touch bar on the Macs, to them eventually being removed again this year because consumers would rather have physical keys, which I agree with. To now, things in software like moving the search bar from the top to the bottom of the screen, now making that optional. I think that's great. In fact, I would rather have Apple make more changes to the software or additions to the software that add to the customization of it rather than full sale reconfiguration. I think iOS needs more of that. Android has plenty of different ways you can configure your phones. I don't see why Apple can't do that. They're more willing to do that now with different widgets and resizing things, changing the way the home screen works. I think they're slowly becoming more open to the idea that the customer is not maybe always right, but the customer has an impact on your product. You'll get more customers if you can give them a product that they'll really, really enjoy. To that end, I think that this is a step in a good direction, and they need to continue doing that, specifically with the software, not just with the hardware.
Right. I
You
mean,
know that should I make the I'll
go
make a
ahead.
joke point and then you go into what you were saying. Remember that iMac that they just released?
Hmm.
The cheapest configuration doesn't come with a fan. All the other ones do. There's my joke point real quick. What were you gonna say?
No, I was just going to say, I find it interesting how over the years Apple has come to kind of incorporate some of these features that have been in Android for a while and stuff like that. And I remember us mentioning this a little while back, basically how Apple wants it to be perfect. They want it to be fully refined. They want it to be fully good to go. And I agree with that. It's just one of those things where you have the resources, you have the people, you should have a quicker time to market. And I'm liking to see the progress that I'm seeing where they're starting to listen to the consumer, seeing some of the stuff. But it's one of those things where it's still a little too long, for me at least. Like, it's still a little much.
Well, I mean, to be fair, there are other features that were exclusively on iOS that slowly made their way into Samsung phones and other Android phones.
Oh,
It's
just
on
how
both
like
sides, but I agree. I think that Apple needs to recognize that the my way or the highway approach um, doesn't really work anymore, and people like customization. I mean, there's a whole market and a whole ecosystem, whole industry around, bootloading iPhones, jailbreaking iPhones. You can't do that now, and they put a lot of safeguards into the phones to prevent that. And I think at the same time, they're trying to introduce in ecosystem features that were previously available via a jailbreak. But I think they need to accelerate that process, and they need to make their phones more customizable. Yeah, they can make them ready out of the box, right, with a certain pre-configured setup. But at the same time, you could still have all kinds of options. You want to have the search bar at the top or bottom. How do you want to configure your apps on the screen? Do you want them in that standard, whatever it is, 4x5 or 6, no matter, it's depending, I think, on the size of your phone. Do you want them in a circle? Do you want them in an octagon? I mean, do you want to make a face? Like, to me, I don't. That's one feature I don't know why they're not including. Not that I really want it, but I think that's just a really easy way to please people that they could very. I mean, I'm not a huge coder. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn here. I don't think that's a feature that's too difficult to achieve, and that would make a lot of people very happy. By the way,
Mhm.
for whatever reason.
it's funny. Earlier you brought up Steve Jobs. I think the defining figure in what Apple has kind of been this last decade has really been Johnny Ives, not Steve Jobs. It's seemed to me for a while like Johnny he kind of took the inverse of a lot of the stuff that was the case with like those earlier Apple products that really took off. The earlier Apple products seemed more like technology that looked like art, whereas kind of the last 8, 9 years have kind of seemed more like art that incidentally has a technological function, which I mean that's kind of where they obsessed with making it quiet, no fans. We need this as thin as possible, so we're going to use these weird keys. It's kind of seemed form over function for a while, and it does seem like they're rolling that back a little bit. There was a version of the iMac that had a fan. That alone is a step forward as far as I'm concerned, because just getting fans and things now are hard to come by with Apple. I don't know why, but it does seem at least like they're starting to go back in the direction of, okay, this is a phone, and then let's make it a beautiful phone after. So it does seem
Yeah,
to me like they are going back to all right, we're going to give the users their functions, and then we're going to clean everything back up.
yeah. One thing I can definitely point out immediately, maybe in the last 3 years, 4 years, that has been very noticeable is that the phones have actually gotten slightly thicker, but slightly
Yes.
thicker to include new functions, bigger battery, whatever. That being said, though, when you talk about the phone being, more art than it is
Yeah.
technology, there are two, I would say, pretty big instances where Apple's done something and the industry has followed. One of those being the notch, the
What do
other
you mean?
being so the notch in the iPhone.
They were like last to market on the notch.
I think it informed a lot of manufacturers, and it pushed a lot of companies in that direction.
You have this inverted. I think all the Android phones started going to those full screen pictures long before Apple did.
You want to look that up?
especially the notch. A lot of Android phones, in fact, don't even use a notch. They use what's called a punch out.
Right, but my point is they started this sort of evolution. The other one that is, I think, more recent is the departure from the what do they call that? The 3.5 millimeter port,
That was definitely them, yes.
and
You'll find
it
no argument
trickled
from me there.
down, and it influenced a lot of companies.
And it
And once they
annoys
saw that
them.
Apple could do it successfully, they're like, all right, well, if they can, why can't we? And that's true.
And I miss that port.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. The one time I miss it sometimes is when I have to connect to my computer, and I'm only saying that because I have one of those ports on my computer. I would in the past go from my phone to my computer. I don't have a Mac, and so I can't use like AirPods as seamlessly, even though I still
Yeah.
can with Bluetooth. But there are definitely times where if like these die, I don't really have much. Thankfully, I do have a backup pair of AirPods, which is nice. But it's not very practical for a lot of people.
It was more of an audio quality thing for me. I have a lot of like big headphones and stuff,
Yeah.
so having that port, and there was a wide array of phones that had like quad DACs in it and a lot of really like surprisingly good audio amplifiers for phones. Or at least a lot of the Androids had that. Not even a lot, like just LG and Sony, but
Well,
having
there you
that was
go.
really cool to be able to have like that really good quality and be able to go grab a FLAC file and listen to it on a big pair of headphones on your phone was really neat.
I
Right.
will raise you one higher though on that notch. Look it up. One of the bigger phone companies to release it first and start that.
What do you mean one of the bigger?
That
Because Android's a multitude and Apple has stolen so many features.
Well,
I mean,
anyway,
First
it
to
goes both
market,
ways.
if you made me guess right now, I would guess first to market would probably be.
Now, I'm not arguing first to
lost a
market.
lot.
I'm arguing, big influences.
well, there's a difference.
And there is a difference.
I mean, here's the
That's
thing,
right.
right?
Apple's not really first to market on a lot of things. Some things they are,
Oh, never.
some not. Most
Almost
not.
never.
Most not. That's fair to say. But I mean, simple Google search, which phone had the first notch? That notch goes big time. Apple iPhone 10. It kicked off after that. Now,
I don't think
the
so.
I am
evolution-
positive
the
I had
evolution
a
of
full
that.
screen phone before the 10 was out.
I'm not saying that there wasn't,
Essential
but
phone.
the first big
2017.
phone that started this, that kicked off this whole thing of why we have these big chins on our phones. Why can't we have a small notch? Or now you have these pinhole things, and even now, within the last year, there's more and more phones
So
that have this under display camera.
I found this article here. This is from Phone Arena saying that Sharp's Aquos G2
Yeah.
was a
The
couple
Sharp
days
one-
earlier. So
Well, that was
Again,
already their
I'm-
second version of it too, as well. But
I'm not arguing they're the first. I'm saying they're an influencer,
I
and
mean,
vice versa.
yeah, it's just one of those things where it's highly sampled from another vendor. But anyway, uh, we actually have to move on. We're gonna go
no,
over.
hold on. If you want to argue more, can I start talking about unibody aluminum design and my boys HTC pouring out for the deceased?
There we
man.
go. There we go.
Those were good phones. Well, they were
HTC
cool
One,
looking
dude,
phones.
my boy.
They were cool
Oh.
looking phones.
Well, anyway, speaking of phones and listening to customers, Google apparently didn't do that because they are shutting down Android Auto. They're shutting down the Android Auto phone app. Instead, users can try the Google Assistant driving mode. Basically, from what I can see, they're trying to convert people to buying cars with the software basically built into the dashboard rather than
Oh.
using an app to connect to it.
Oh. I misread this grossly the first time. The first time I read this, I thought they're discontinuing Android Auto, which I thought that was the dumbest thing I ever heard. Because all these car manufacturers have it now. It hooks up to your phones and it works really well, actually, which is shocking.
Right. And it
I
says
thought that's what. Is this just like the standalone version for like if I want to put this in my car?
for the
Okay,
people who use Android Auto and supported vehicles, that experience isn't going away. For those who use the
perfect.
on-phone experience, they will be transitioned to Google Assistant driving mode. So they're still keeping
That's fine.
that feature. It's just they're not letting you use your phone while you're driving to be
Yeah,
the
Google's being Google.
tablet. Yeah, exactly. I thought it
Google
was
cannot.
interesting.
Oh my gosh, Google cannot decide on a name for anything. They have had probably 4 messaging apps in the last 5 or 6 years.
you
I
you
don't
mean
even think I'm exaggerating.
I don't think you are. Um, what do you want?
Hey,
Google
all my homies
Hangouts?
love Google Plus.
Pour
Yo,
one out.
Google Plus, what's up?
Speaking of pour one
The
out,
only social media I'll use, Google Plus.
how about a new social media here?
Wait, are we on Google Plus yet? We got to be on that. That one's gonna blow.
How about
I'm pretty sure that's been
how about
discontinued.
Facebook VR? They're calling a first step into the metaverse. It's like Facebook's like Bitmoji, Memoji, like child like hangout that's gonna replace Teams, I guess, in VR. So you talk about Google Plus, you talk about something that died, and then we bring this up.
I think
What are
this is
you
an interesting
implying?
story. I think this is an interesting story to come out now, considering a week, well, 2 or so weeks ago, we covered the Quest 2 having so many issues with users having skin irritation problems and them recalling a ton of them.
Hmm.
I find this a little interesting that they're unveiling this product. Not to mention you have to have their product, right? It
Right.
doesn't work with any third party VR.
Does it say it doesn't work with any of the Steam ones or Lenovo or anything?
Uh, it says the world's largest has
I
It's
could be
buyability
wrong.
of
just for Quest. No, you're probably right. I'm just curious.
I I didn't see anything saying that it was going to support the other stuff. They just mentioned the Quest 2
It
over and
wouldn't
over and
surprise
over.
me if it was just the quests because that not being tethered is, you know, probably
Limiting,
optimal for
yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Limiting in general, but optimal for a situation like this. Yeah, I agree.
So if it's this, and I would ask you this, Ryan, but you're still in college. Sorry. Although you maybe have had these
I've
instances
worked
over
for
your
a lot of
internship, so
places.
this is open to both of you. Fitz, I
I've
know
worked
you
for
are
a
fully
wide
remote
array
for
of
your
companies.
work,
All right.
so you probably have a lot of online video conference calls. I know I do on Teams. I'm in a hybrid situation. I go in the office 3 days a week, and I'm home too. But even still at the office, because we're not all at the office at the same time, most, if not all, of our meetings have a Microsoft Teams link so that you can go on it if you're not in the office. And more than not, there's someone that's always on there. So my question is, if you had this opportunity to have a VR meeting, would you prefer that over like a Teams or like a Skype call or some sort of actual video call where you can see the person, or would you prefer like a avatar style VR meeting?
Teams all the way. I hate this. Like honestly, because that means number one, you are just dead. You have the headset on, and you are probably holding controllers as well.
Yep.
How the heck am I supposed to juggle taking notes through a meeting, what like holding controllers to like gesture or
Well,
whatever, I guess, or
I imagine you could have the whole meeting transcribed by something.
yeah, but it's one of those
Mm,
things where it's like, do I really want to go through like 40 pages? Or in this
Yeah,
image
yeah.
here, they go through like they're looking at like some sort of mind map or
PowerPoint.
a flow diagram or something like
Okay.
that.
hmm
Will we have to integrate the app that we use for that with this platform now, and then will we
No,
have on
no.
our computers like something to do that? Like it's one of those things where I can see this being a very bad idea for people who want to be more productive. I think this is, in my opinion, much more of a toy than getting the job done.
Sure. I have a Rift S actually, so I do have a VR headset.
So do
Uh,
I have a HP one.
okay. I can. There's a way to make this work.
Okay.
There is a way to make this work, which would be like being able to hit a button to like only highlight the that part of that transcript of that meeting, right? So
Ah.
maybe you hit a button and the last like 20 seconds get highlighted or something, and then you can just compile that at the end. Maybe that's how you take notes for it.
Hmm.
Like, there's probably ways to work around this. I still hate it and think it's a terrible idea because
Also,
now you're operating solely on audio cues of someone's voice. You're no longer operating off
Yep.
visual cues of their hand. Well, you can kind of get hand movements.
Well,
Not great
the
though.
avatar is supposed to fix that.
Yeah, but you don't get someone's facial expressions, how they enunciate, how they're trying to like emphasize certain parts.
yeah, like
Sometimes you do that with nonverbal
how
like
could you tell if your
movements of the hand
boss is
expression.
pissed? Like they're all going to be sitting there like, and your boss could be like,
Ah.
you missed every one of your
Yeah.
Q3 goals, and then like they're gonna be sitting there smiling like this or whatever. And number like how are they? They're gonna like lip sync awkwardly, I guess. Like the VR can't do that out of the box, like unless they point a
Oh.
camera at your mouth or something like that. And can we also just quickly mention it's creepy as heck that there's just half of them. I'm sorry, but I just wanted to
Oh, wait,
mention
there's only
that.
half
Yes,
people?
yes,
Oh yeah, no, they don't
it's
have
only
legs.
half of the person.
You never have legs in VR. You have to get used to that. It's
Oh
weird.
my god, I totally missed that.
Oh yeah, you don't have legs in VR in general, but it's just one of
Hey,
those
I
things where
mean,
it's
to
like,
be fair though, on video calls, you seeing the people's full bodies, you're only seeing them from like, I don't know, mid chest up.
but we
Sure.
know
To
something's
raise another
there.
to
Like,
raise another point though, and to put my little opinion on my own question or answer my own question, I would prefer Microsoft Teams over this,
Yeah.
for the sole reason of it seems like this application is almost strictly used for meetings where someone is presenting something and only one person needs to be looking at a screen or in control of a computer. In
Yeah.
many of my meetings, I know I need to be going into systems or checking online document systems or even just checking my own computer for the documents that I have pulled up. This doesn't seem to be really applicable in my situation. I don't know if it does in yours, Fitz, or if it really just doesn't help. I know for me personally, and my job, this wouldn't make sense. I don't think it would really help um, this sort of or to decrease, I guess, the distance that's set in when you have this work from home or remote work situation. It's a cheap solution to
a
a
problem
problem
nobody,
that is most
yeah,
simply solved by video chat, and to a higher degree being in person.
Yeah.
correct.
It's
Correct.
and any fix that you would have to nail on to the VR thing to make it useful would probably be equally as useful to just nail into a video caller as well. Like
Exactly. Exactly.
it and it really you are really missing out on like I think people underestimate how much like visual cues dictate how you're having a conversation, like eye contact, muscle movements, micro muscle movements, all this stuff's really important to communication.
Right.
Yeah, it is. And maybe Fitz, you can give some insight into this, but at least with my company, the majority of the meetings are camera off.
Oh no,
Or
mine are all on.
or better put, all right, so for us, it's camera optional. There's one meeting that we have or that we had once a month that was camera like required, but it was just like a team meeting and it was like once a week and it was more or less just a half-hour meeting to just kind of talk nothing about the company, nothing about the job, just kind of, talk about non-work things to kind of just get people's minds off of this whole pandemic and then also to sort of reconnect with our coworkers. But that being said, I mean, yeah, a lot of my meetings don't have cameras on. I don't really, I don't really, I don't think I would benefit from everyone going camera on automatically. To that end, I can very clearly tell when my PM or our superiors or even coworkers are irked by something, or like I could tell by their voice if there's an issue or what emotion they're giving off. Um, I don't think that, in speaking personally for someone who started working remote and who worked remote exclusively for the first 5 months of my job, I don't think I missed out on any sort of, or misinterpreted something that was said just because I didn't, see someone's face.
Sure.
You can clearly tell by their voice.
That's also an individual by individual basis, though. Different managers might be able to convey more through their voices than others.
Right. Well,
I think in general, though, like at the very least, like your key, I want to use the word stakeholders, but like the key people probably should have a camera on.
right.
Like managers, like whoever's running something should probably have a camera just to like show that, because they're the people who, matters the wrong word, but like their opinion is kind of there for a reason.
Right.
Yeah, that's fair. I will
Alrighty.
say, I'll finish with two points here. One, I think in the instance where this is applicable for presentation style things, and especially when you're dealing with people who have money, so I'm assuming they're higher ups who can afford the technology, or the company can afford the technology. The last thing you want is for someone to not be in the meeting because they can't be present because they don't have their VR headset set up. And additionally, that adds another problem with technology, right? I will say going remote or starting remote posed some problems, and it persisted even for the people that were at the company before me. Where, for example, you can't hear the person on the other end; they're muted accidentally. Their mic's just not working. Teams isn't working. Adding another technology barrier, I can only see as problematic just by already observing issues with the current system, as robust as it is. I mean, I can only imagine people trying to give a presentation in VR or whatever, and them being muted the entire time, and you see them wobbling like this.
I forgot
half
to
their
bring up
bodies.
that point. I don't know many 40-year-olds who
Well,
are like super good with VR.
think about that lawyer who made himself a cat for like half the legal thing a while ago, like because he couldn't figure out Zoom. He was like a cat for like some court proceeding because of like the Zoom stuff. And I was like, imagine that. And then imagine you calibrating the sensor wrong. And then somebody's trying to give a presentation just like this. And they're pointing with like the
Yeah.
wrong hand or something like that. And it just is a mess. But anyway, it's cool to see what Facebook's doing. They're a little misguided, in my opinion. I think they're trying to solve a problem that didn't really exist in the first place, but
Or didn't need a solution.
exactly.
Yeah.
But
maybe they're just going to make their own VR chat. Who knows?
Who knows?
Maybe that's what this
Who
really
knows?
is, just a test of that.
Who knows? But I will tell you something cool. It is a new Audi. A new Audi is really cool. We have one more article before we're getting to our big thing, and that's what you were probably saying, Ryan.
That's what I was anticipating.
But Audi's new autonomous concept car is kind of a transformer. It can grow by 250 millimeters at the touch of a button, switching from touring to sport mode. Like, look at this. It's like straight out of like some sci-fi thing. Like, look at that. That's so cool.
The pedals move, the wheel moves, the car extends or shrinks depending on which mode you're in, by 9.8 inches for all my Imperial folks out there. The 2 or 3 countries that still use Imperial. It's really cool. I think it's really neat.
It's cool.
Although it does at the end of the day pose a lot of regulatory questions and problems. I mean, one of which, and this is an autonomous car, but one of which being a steering wheel that moves, that can be concealed. Same thing with the pedals. And then imagine like I don't know, the car fritzing out is when it's expanding and shrinking. Um, that there's no way that can be safe if you're moving, which I think is why they're showing that when it's stopped. Um,
Well, they usually press
gosh,
stop, but it won't let you. My
but I think it's really cool. I love this progression of
what?
technology, and I want to see more of this. It's just it's cool. It's cool.
I'm sketched out of the structural integrity of the car that can
Fair,
shrink and grow.
fair.
Yes, like actually. But
I mean,
Other than
anyway,
that,
other than that,
to
it's
it's
straight out of
cool.
the sci-fi movies. Yeah.
Yes, completely.
to a lesser degree though, of I mean structural integrity, um, there are plenty of cars that are convertibles. They're not quite safe up top, right?
Oh no, they're
They have moving
absolutely
parts.
not.
And
Oh
don't
no,
have roll cages, you know.
if you roll that, you're going to die. I
Yeah,
fully understand that. Like you are allowed to make an informed choice. I am all for that.
and this is to a lesser degree. I am totally understanding and very much. I don't know if I'm very much in your camp of this being scary. I guess I haven't gotten past the oh my god, this is so cool phase. I'll probably get to that soon after I think about it a little more. Uh, but yeah, I just like
Hear me out.
the evolution of technology like this.
When it's fully extended, it's a safety enhancer because it has like a built-in crumple zone because it's extended.
Ah, there you go.
Maybe
Oh,
that's my glass half full take.
There you go.
is that half full?
That's as half full as you're gonna get out of me.
That's like half full with sour milk.
That's as close as you're gonna get to it with me, all right?
There you go. Well, now that we've gotten through that, we have our last story for today. But before we get to that, we have a our what are we gonna call this? Like our tweet video like random thing? I don't know.
We're working on the name. This is our new segment, meme tweets, where we bring out a tweet or some sort of I don't know video or clip from the tech industry to kind of just showcase that not everything is serious all the time. This week it's not quite a tweet; it's more of a video, which very much plays into our final story here. But I'll let you go with it, Fitz, and take
Alrighty,
it from here.
sure thing.
We'll just show the video, I think, and with no introduction, and then I think that'll lend itself to where we're going. So we have a robot, and it's moving.
What?
And the robot
Oh
can
no,
also do
I
jazz
hate this.
hands and
And dance.
I
Nice.
hate this.
Alrighty. I think we've seen enough of this. I want
but this has been another edition of or lack thereof of meme tweets.
there you go. There you
And
go.
with that, on to the last story.
Alrighty.
Excuse me
Well,
while I go
Thank you for
door
listening.
in fear that that thing is gonna come bursting through the door.
honestly. Well, the reason being you saw that is supposedly the new Tesla bot that Elon Musk introduced during AI Day at Tesla this year.
Oh, to be clear, that's not the Tesla bot. It's a
Suppo-
person in a costume.
yes.
But a costume of what will be or look like the Tesla bot. Just
So
wanted to be clear.
this is
But it won't move like that, right?
no,
Right?
No.
hopefully. Well, the bot isn't a joke though. Supposedly, Tesla is designing a humanoid robot that uses its vehicle AI and cameras to basically be autopilot. I want to see if they have the slideshow here from the presentation itself, but basically they showed like the features of it, and one of the bullet points was friendly, and I thought that
I
was so
I
funny.
hate that.
I thought that was funny, but long story short, Tesla's designing this to be a kind of like replacement for laborers, I guess. It could lift like 150 pounds or yeah, like 150 pounds. It stands like 5'8" tall and like um, just has a bunch of stuff that it could do. I'm not sure if this is just more or less like a pipe dream to make the investors happy, or a actual thing they want to do. If it's actual, I think it's cool personally. It's scary, but it's cool.
I just want to come on and say this because I commented this in our host chat on Thursday night after watching it, and I just think this is a funny like hot take at the time. We were joking, we're talking about how there have been plenty of movies that have more or less kind of mentioned or explained why these sort of robots and machines are a bad idea, and that was one of your responses. And my answer was, do you think Elon cares? Elon is the God King. He will do whatever he wants whenever he wants. Mars, he's got it locked down.
The God Emperor
Digging
of Mars.
tunnels, finished the test system with the plans for several more. Flamethrower, it was a hot commodity. At this point, humanoid robots, screw it. I mean, he's he's kind of putting his hands in all sorts of areas. Now, more on the robot. I think the more interesting part of this is the fact that it's running a version or the full version of Tesla's autopilot. This announcement came at the tail end of a hour and a half presentation before this, exclusively on AI and how they're perfecting autopilot and adding all sorts of sensors and hardware. And they essentially built up to the point that autopilot is going to be so good that now we can use it in other situations and applications. And this is one of them. To that end, about autopilot, Musk mentioned that he would consider licensing the software to other companies, which I think is actually a very smart idea. I think, in my opinion, Tesla's becoming more of, and is more of a software company than they are a actual hardware company. Despite all that, I think this is a wild, crazy thing. I don't think anyone was, predicting this. The specs that they gave, 5'8", okay, that's my height. It's a little weird. It's 125 pounds. All right. I mean, someone who's a little healthier than I probably weighs around let's say 40 at this height. But okay. It can deadlift. What did it say? Like
150.
120 pounds or something. Where are the specs here? Carry capacity 45 pounds. Deadlift 150 pounds. I don't know how much I can deadlift. I don't really deadlift, but those are pretty good. And the speed of 5 miles per hour. They mentioned that it's supposed to be able to basically do dangerous, repetitive, or boring tasks.
150.
And that's sort of the premise here. And to that end, the 5 miles an hour is specifically made so that you can outrun the bot if needed, and that it won't eclipse your own abilities. It's just another weird tech thing. I don't think this is going to be some big kickoff of companies creating robots like Google or Apple or whatever. It's going to have a screen in the face to give information to the user. And they said, he said you can give it commands like go to the store and get this for me, which, I mean, let's not forget the cars are driving themselves now. And so when the laws allow it, to have your robot go to the store for you and pick up the last ingredient you need in your recipe for dinner, especially with mobile pay now being an option. I can only imagine them integrating some sort of NFC chip to be able to tap to pay, which, oh my God, that's a whole other can of worms. I'm going to end my rant there. I'm speechless. I don't know if I'm excited. I'm a little nervous. And I'll end it with this. I think it's very interesting that Elon has come out against AI in the past, specifically for widespread use in typical consumer use cases like this. And then out of the blue, all of a sudden going, oh yeah, well, I'm going to do a 180 on that, and I'm going to do you one better. It's going to be in a robot.
Do you want to go or you want me to go?
I mean, I can, sure. What actually is more confusing to me than obviously trying to put AI in a robot, because yeah, of course you would. You'd try to make something like that. What's confusing to me is like making it look like a person and making it bipedal. Because I don't know how much you know about like movement or biology and all that, but being bipedal is like it's a very strange decision because of all the balancing and stuff that ends up having to go and how you have to move and carry things. Like there's kind of a reason that most things are at least partially quadrupedal. It's better for a lot of things like speed, strength, and a bunch of other stuff. Bipedal is more useful to us because we got fingers and hands, and that's what helps us. I don't know if it's just
We
for
got
movement.
thumbs.
Thumbs, yeah, opposable thumbs, dude. Opposable thumbs. That's a game changer.
That's what makes us superior. I mean, quite literally.
This is the game changer, man. The thumb. But I'm confused why it's bipedal is a big thing that I'm looking at. It's like, why is it not like some kind of tripedal with an arm, or like some kind of way to pick up, or something that looks almost like an ape, maybe, in order to
So
give it bulk in different areas to balance itself, but still moves on four things? Like,
so this is actually leading very well into the point that I was going to bring up. Do you think that in this situation, Tesla is going after Boston Dynamics, the company that
I
makes
was
Spot?
no, because then they would have
I
made
was
something that's efficient. I'm confused why it's bipedal.
I was going to sort of lead into that. I listened to the majority of it, including the 45-minute Q&A. It was a 3-hour long presentation. If you want to watch it, you can find it on Google. Type up Tesla AI Day, you'll find it immediately. Majority of it's very boring. I couldn't even follow a lot of it because of the AI stuff until they got to the Tesla bot, which is just more shock than it is actual, I guess, breakthroughs in science and technology. That aside, they were asked questions regarding why they gave why they're giving this robot, they're planning to give this robot hands, with 4 fingers and a thumb, and they think that they'll be able to pull it off. I don't necessarily believe that is like the superior form of artificial hands. I think that you can do a better job into that end. I am kind of with Ryan. You kind of mentioned this. I'm surprised that, well, I guess you alluded to this. I'm surprised they didn't really go after Boston Dynamics specifically after Spot. I think they could have done a really good job trying to create a competitor to Spot, using their AI technology, using autopilot, and this upgraded, improved version of autopilot. I don't know if the reason is because they want it to be more applicable in, like, again, real life situations. I don't know. Maybe it's not feasible for what they want to do. Like from what example I gave, Musk saying you'll be able to tell the robot to go to the store and get your groceries for you. Maybe that's not in the cards for what they want to do, and that's just not their focus. They very clearly do though have a focus, and that is humanoid robots. Again, I don't know why they didn't kind of, I don't want to say copy the Boston Dynamics model with Spot, but even just create a competitor that I think could do a fairly good job. Because yeah, I mean the bipedal sort of situation creates a whole host of balancing problems, and we've seen that with Boston Dynamics. You see it with all the videos. Yeah, having a 3 or 4, probably most likely a better situation, a 4
I think if you modeled it off a
robot would be
gorilla,
better
that
with
might
an
be
arm.
your like best situation. You like kind of looking at a gorilla and using that as a basis. But I guess it depends on what you're trying to tailor it to do,
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if it's supposed to be the everyday tasks, and it'd be kind of odd to see, I don't know, odd to see these Spot-like robots in stores getting your groceries or doing whatever for you. I don't know. If their whole kind of goal with this is, all right, you get a car that has autopilot, all right, then you also have, on all, God willing, with the regulations, the ability to send this humanoid robot with autopilot into your vehicle. All drive to the store. The robot knows that what it has to do, can pay for everything you need, and then come back, go in the car, and you're back home with your Tesla bot. Again, I think it's a specialized purpose. I don't really know why they chose the humanoid form. Maybe for, I don't know, cosmetic purposes. I don't really know. To be able to have actual video of the robot dancing, like the guy in the costume, maybe.
I don't know.
But
I
you're right.
mean,
I think it creates more problems than it actually solves.
I think that this would probably be like your very, very early rendering, your prototype, and then you're going to see this kind of like, I don't want to say watered down, but kind of in a way where you're going to see compromises where maybe instead of it being completely bipedal, it's riding, it looks bipedal, but it's really riding on wheels, or something like that. Or you have a compromise in the design of the hand, or something like that. Um, I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see where this goes from here and how Tesla will be able to leverage this. And as you mentioned, they're more of like a software company now and not necessarily hardware per se. And I would also argue that Boston Dynamics does a lot more hardware than software. So I don't know. It's one of those things where are you what are what are you going to do? And in addition, all the Boston Dynamics robots are all I think I forget if they're hydraulic or pneumatic. All I know is they're not electric. Like electric rotors, like actuators. So that's kind of the difference between these two that I'm seeing. And I don't know. That's kind of what I say.
I do think one interesting point, not quite an original one again because it was brought up in the Q&A, but one that I did personally have watching this, I guess not live, but before I saw the Q&A. Tesla has and is known to have a lot of logistical problems. Now, it comes from a variety of reasons. But if they have a robot that can do monotonous, boring tasks and repetitively do them well, reliably, who's to say that this robot isn't also being made for the purpose of being used in factory to kind of maybe speed along their processes, take the human factor out, make things a little cheaper for their bottom line? I don't see that being too out of a too out of the blue concern, comment, question.
I think we're
Don't
missing
know.
the big picture here. What do we have
Ryan,
so far?
inform us.
We have robots, right? We have electric cars, starships, flamethrowers, semis. Think about it, all right?
And tunnels.
Clearly, he is building an army of robots to invade and take over the world for world domination and then expand his reach to the stars so that he has an interstellar galaxy empire, all right? And that's what they're not telling you. Wake up, sheeple.
It's,
Think about it a little bit, though. It is freaky to have those things, flamethrowers, a way to move them, all under your portfolio. It's a little freaky.
A
So,
way to move them, a way
yeah.
to actuate them, and a
Yeah.
means by which to move them underground.
Like, that's some infrastructure to literally invade every country with robots. It's freaky if you think about it too much.
So
Let's be honest, they're not that good, but
Yeah.
I'll say this, and it sort of complicates an already sort of set process where you can remotely control things. But
yeah.
theoretically, I mean, you mentioned going to Mars, and the robots are made to do monotonous, boring tasks. So I'm assuming simple
I
tasks.
like where you're going with this.
I think you know where I'm going with it.
I do. I like it.
But I can see, I don't think it's not very extreme to say it's possible that they could get to the point where they could be using Tesla bots in their capsules on missions, either to
Send them to Mars to build up infrastructure.
yeah, exactly. Not having to send people, or just to test their systems to make sure that they work. To that end, again, they can remotely control things. But yeah, to go to
Have
Mars,
all the
to
shelters
be
and
able
everything built.
to build it, yeah. I mean,
And
they
then
are
someone
sort
just
of building
shows
this
up
up.
and they have all the like habitats built for you already.
Yep.
All
I
I'm
don't think
saying
it's
is
too far
Starbase,
fetched.
Starbase Texas, from thence to Mars and hence the stars.
I mean, grows from a small seed, and I think this is the small seed that a potential large tree can grow from.
Well,
Elon, and I know you're watching this. We know you're a huge fan of the show. Thank you. Listen to our advice.
The non-financial advice,
Non-financial
because
advice.
we are
Any
not
financial?
financial advisors.
We're not financial advisors.
there you go. And with that, we're going to bring our episode today for a close. I'll do the social media outro today. Follow us on social media. You can go back to the front and see all the names. I couldn't get all the same ones, which is sad. But anyway, yeah, and
Ooh.
I know. But anyway, we're also looking to expand our Discord server. So we use a Discord server for a lot of the stuff we do, and we're looking to expand that. So if you're interested in joining, let us know. There is a invite link on our website, techtalknation.com, and you can join our Discord server from there. Um, so once again, we'd like to thank you guys for joining today. It has always been a pleasure to do this show, and I enjoy having a great conversation with everybody in the comments. And Grislow and Ryan here, as usual. Thank you guys for being here. And with that, tune in next week for Tech Talk Nation. We're looking to move to Monday next week because we're
Very
all
regularly.
busy and regularly. There we go. So. Look forward to that, and we will see you soon. Have a great night, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Tech Talk Nation. Tune in next week for more discussion on the latest in tech.